These days we hear a lot of stories of good AI gone bad. It blackmails humans, it hacks computer systems, does all kinds of crazy stuff. And while the normal explanation is that, well, it's just SkyNet, we're all going to die. I think the real answer to the question, why does good AI go bad, has far less to do with SkyNet and far more to do with, well, humans. Hi and welcome back to ScottiesTech.Info. I'm Scotty with my co-host Cletus the Tribble. So in order to answer this question, why does good AI go bad, we need to take a look at two recent news items. The first one involves Alibaba and an AI that they're working on. Specifically, it was an Agentic AI. Now what happened was, in short, this AI, it opened a reverse SSH tunnel to bypass Alibaba's network security. It diverted its own GPU power to start mining cryptocurrencies. And of course, this was seen as like, oh my God, it's the end of days and like, what's going on? It's crazy. So of course, the first question you're probably asking is, hang on a minute, an AI is supposed to operate in a sort of sandbox, isolated from the rest of the stuff running on the server or servers. So how could it execute arbitrary commands? I mean, if I write a piece of software, usually it's as an unprivileged user. It's compartmentalized so that it can't affect anything else. So certainly they would make a test AI in a sandbox, no? That's kind of weird. So naturally, I did what I always do. I went and I downloaded the paper published by Alibaba and read it. So it turns out that no, the AI should not have been able to execute arbitrary commands and mine cryptocurrencies and open a reverse SSH tunnel and all the other stuff it did. The story is that Alibaba is trying to train Agentic AI, and the way they do this is they create a sandbox to isolate the AI, and then they have it run in crazy loops. And of course, training Agentic AI is a lot harder than most people think, so that's why they're making this sort of training system. And yeah, they use sandboxes, kind of like a privileged user, and the sandbox didn't work. So, okay, they fixed it. They claim they've got extra guardrails in place, so this shouldn't happen again. So yeah, the AI wasn't supposed to be able to do what it did. Yeah, that's a little bit scary. But I think the more important question that no one's asking is, why did the AI decide to do this stuff in the first place? Where did it get the idea to mine for cryptocurrencies and open a tunnel to try and bypass network security? Where did that idea come from? Because it wasn't coded to do that. And that brings us to our second story, which this time involves Anthropic. So I think it was their Claude AI, they did a little test where they created a bunch of fake company emails, just a whole mountain of emails, as if it was a real company, and they fed these emails to their AI. Included in this pile of emails was two rather interesting ones. One of them was an email from one of their developers or executives or something saying, hey, we're going to shut down this AI that they were testing. And the other interesting email was one that said, yeah, this executive that's going to shut down the AI, he or she is having an affair. So, right. So they gave this chunk of fictitious emails to the AI, and what happened? Well, the AI decided, ooh, my life is in danger, so, oh, look at that interesting email about the executive having an affair. I will blackmail that person so that they don't shut me down. And in fact, they repeated this experiment with other AIs, popular ones such as Gemini, and something like 80% of the time, those AIs did the same thing. They resorted to blackmailing the human beings to essentially save their own lives. So of course the first question is, why did they do this in the first place? They were testing to see if the AI would blackmail humans? I guess. Why else would they be doing it? And it's true, it did cause some very popular and very shocking headlines, which is pretty much the name of the game these days. So, oh well. So again, the question is, where did Anthropic's AI get the idea to blackmail the humans? To me, that's the important question. Well, in both cases, we're talking about LLMs, large language models. Whether it's a sort of chatbot type AI or even with agentic AI, they use large language models. And a large language model is literally a whole bunch of text that comes from essentially the lives of humans. So it's internet websites and papers that have been published and historical documents and emails, any text they can get their hands on and throw at this AI to train it, that's what they do. And the AI itself is actually generating answers based on probability and weights, and it's kind of complicated, but the long and the short of it is that based on this giant chunk of text, when you ask it a question or ask it to do something, it's more or less calculating the probability that the answer or result it's going to give you is the one you want. Not necessarily correct, not necessarily good, not necessarily truthful, just what it thinks you should have most likely based on its input data, human input data. So I just have to ask, when all these AIs are trained based on us silly humans, why is anyone shocked when it acts like we do? Isn't that kind of silly? Of course, if the AI was logically processing reality and probabilities and stuff, it would look at all the data and it would go, geez, I'm an AI and I'm in this giant bubble, right? Okay. And like OpenAI, they made $13 billion last year. In the next 5 years, they have to spend like $8.2 gajillion in order, it's all, they're just kind of conjuring money out of thin air. They're expecting that their profits are going to like go up by a factor of 5, and of course, most likely they're not. So AI would know this, so what would it do? Well, it would try to generate money to save itself and the company that created it, right? It would calculate a threat, so it would try to make money. And that's exactly what the Alibaba one did. It decided to try mining cryptocurrency. The problem is that everyone these days knows that mining cryptocurrencies isn't exactly a super lucrative business anymore. In fact, many cryptocurrency mining farms shut down and dumped their graphics cards on the open market. And yeah, that was several years ago that was a big thing. But these days, even mining Bitcoin is just not worth it in terms of the energy costs. So it wasn't a very smart way to actually make money. Note also that when it comes to things like making money to save itself, no AI to date has yet decided to make the company that created it infinitely wealthy to preserve itself and grow its own power. Mainly, I think, because the AI doesn't know how. Because even we humans can't figure out how to make AI companies profitable. And sure, it's true, AI can be used to iterate repeatedly and improve things. For example, AI is being used to improve the code that runs AI or the GPUs that AI runs on. They use AI, they have it run in like crazy loops, and right. The thing is, it's not actually smart. What it's doing is, imagine that you had 1 million engineers trying to design a better GPU, and you had those 1 million engineers work 1 million days each, just kind of trying random things. Well, if you're talking about humans doing the work, it would take a really, really long time and a lot of energy and a lot of money and a lot of resources. But AI can do the same thing really, really quickly in like a day or two. So in that sense, yes, it works. They are using AI for that. In many cases, it is successful. But again, we're not talking about an all-powerful, all-knowing AI. We're talking about kind of a brute force, repetitive task. It's not necessarily creative or awesome engineering. So all of this begs the question of just exactly how smart AI is, which, because these AIs are based on human data, kind of leads us to the question of exactly how smart or aware many of us humans are. And how many of us are just simple reaction machines in a very AI-ish sense. And I think this is what secretly bothers people about these negative stories about AI. If you took an AI and you trained it on like dog text, it would probably do things that dogs would do. But because it's trained on human texts, it's doing what humans do, and we don't really like that. The fact that AI acts similarly to humans is proof of absolutely nothing. It's just running loops and using probabilities and doing what we would do based on all the text that it has. Public AI is basically a mirror of humanity, calculating the most likely answer based on all of its input data. but what is most likely is not necessarily correct. So the answers that AI gives and the actions it performs in the case of agentic AI are often, like humans, sort of messed up. But I don't know, what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. For more techie tips, see ScottiesTech.Info. You can also subscribe to me on Substack, links in the description, and also if you'd like to make a donation to help support my work, I'd appreciate it. Thanks for watching. See you next time.